Good morning, folks. I am here today with Ebony Gibson. She is the CEO and founder of Can I Grieve? Welcome, Ebony.
Thank you so much for having me, and good morning, everybody. Excited to be here.
Yes, I'm so excited to have you here because grief is such a big topic, and it's something that it's hard for a lot of people to talk about,
Yeah.
and the way that our society is, if you lose somebody or something like that, you get maybe 3 days bereavement from work, and then you're expected to be back at work operating the same, and it's just not the same anymore, right? And
Right.
so I definitely like to talk to you about what Can I Grieve is all about.
Absolutely. And so, Can I Grieve? I actually launched back in October 2021. So, we're a little under 2 years in business. And I really just launched this company during the pandemic. So, really, it was birthed from personal loss. So, in 2017, my mom suddenly transitioned. She had a heart attack in her sleep. And so that was my first real encounter with grief. I had never lost anybody close to me before. And so um, the way that she passed away, it wasn't traumatic. But if you've never lost anybody before, then it could be traumatic, right? And so that was my first real encounter with grief during the what has it been, like 6 years now, since she transitioned. My grandfather also passed away, and I had a first cousin who passed away. And so really, outside of us going through the pandemic, right, and not being able to be around our family, I wasn't even able to go to my grandfather's funeral because he's in
Wow.
Jamaica. And I know a lot of people during the pandemic, because of restrictions, because of COVID, they weren't able to say goodbye to their loved ones. And so I just wanted to create a safe space for people to heal, for people to be educated about grief, because, like you talked about, society doesn't really, teach us, or it's not really like a normal conversation. It's kind of like a secret conversation. Like nobody, like it's the elephant in the room. Nobody wants to talk about grief. Nobody wants to talk about death. Change the subject. And so, Can I Grieve was really created to inspire, to encourage, and to educate people to rise above grief. And so, we really specialize in educating people about grief so they can know that this is normal, but there's also steps and things that you can do to heal. But at the end of the day, it's all a choice. So, that's a little bit about Can I Grieve?
Well, I'm so sorry to hear about your mom and also your grandfather. Oh my goodness. And I know, not being able to be together and to celebrate someone's life, that's a tough thing, and
Yeah.
that's actually something that a lot of immigrants go through. When they're here, they might not be able to go back to see family that
Yeah.
has passed. um, but there was something that you touched on. Well, I saw on your Instagram,
Hmm.
you referred to yourself as a grief warrior,
Yeah.
and talking about, I guess, what were you referring to when you did say grief warrior? What does that mean to you?
So I don't believe that anybody that goes through any type of loss, not just death, but in life, like let's say you go through a divorce, let's say you lose a baby, like non-death related things, um, I don't believe that we are survivors, right? Like we are meant to conquer things. And
Hmm.
so instead of saying a survivor, I say warrior. So even when I'm doing webinars or when I'm talking to people, I call them warriors. Like we're not just surviving this thing, we're moving forward, we're getting through it. And so I just like the word, instead of using survivors, of warriors or conquerors.
Yeah, I like that
Yeah.
too. And
Yeah.
so take me through your healing journey because, I'm trying to imagine what that journey was like. Like, did you
Mhm.
start off feeling like a warrior, or was that something you grew into going through the healing process?
So that is a great question. My healing process has been many years. My mom passed in 2017, so this is now 2023. And so I always tell people grief doesn't go anywhere, it doesn't go away. You can ignore it, you can bury it, but at the end of the day, it's still going to be there. And so for me, I'm still on a healing journey. You know, every day that we wake up, that we have breath in our body, it's an opportunity to be better and to walk in our purpose. And for me, I had a lot of support in my grief journey. I know that a lot of times people don't always have support. Like typically, right, when we lose someone, people are around for the funeral, people are around for the first couple of months, and then after that, nothing, right?
Mm-hmm.
But for me, it was the opposite. Like I had friends and family, even to this day, that still, reach out to me. That still, we celebrate different anniversaries and birthdays and different things like that. And so, for me, having my tribe, having that support system was everything. But a lot of people always talk about counseling and going to see a therapist. And for me, I just didn't want to do that. And it wasn't until last year that my church was offering a bereavement support group called Grief Share. So it's a program that a lot of different churches use. And I just was like, you know what? I want to facilitate support groups in the future. So let me get this experience. And I'm very much big on being authentic, and so I don't want to be telling people like you need to get help, you need to get support, and I haven't done the work myself. And so it wasn't until last year that I went to a support group through my church, and it was just amazing, right? The things that I thought, because a lot of people get deterred when they lose someone or they lose something, right? And they turn away from God. Some people turn to him, but majority of people turn away. And I was one of those people who turned away. And so I was able to heal during that process when I understood how God feels about us, how he looks at death, how he mourned over Lazarus, and just etc. And I don't mean to get too, spiritual, but it is what it is. And so my healing journey is a consistent journey. It's never going to stop because I always want to be better. But I just try to instill and honor the things that my mom taught me. And so that has also been beneficial in my healing journey. And then just educating myself. I think that's been one of the biggest things, because if you don't know the process of grief, then you'll think like, am I even grieving, right? Because I'm not crying all the time. Or you'll think like, oh, in a year or in 2 months or whatever society says I should be over it. But when you educate yourself, you empower yourself. And so
Yeah.
what you think, you have to change. And so it's allowed me to be able to educate other people by me empowering myself. And so not only am I on a healing journey, I'm on a journey to heal other people now that I now have this education. So I would just say my healing journey is a process. And the biggest thing that has helped me is my tribe, my family, and my friends, and just educating, drowning myself in grief, and just understanding death, right? Because at the end of the day, the only thing that matters is the dash in between when it's our time to pass away. So,
Yes. And I think what you said was very profound about in the beginning that you did not want to go to counseling and that type of thing. But now here you are telling people, well, you need to go to counseling when you weren't willing to do it yourself.
right.
And I think also where you talked about you turned away from God, and I do hear a lot of people say that too, that they were angry
Mm-hmm.
and they turned away for a bit, and when they were able to work through those feelings and understand what the purpose, or not even the purpose, but just be able to trust, right? Be able to trust that this is a process and something that had to happen.
Right.
And now I'm trusting God again. I'm back to trusting the process.
Right.
That's a huge thing, because we're all spiritual, whether we believe in God or not.
Right.
We are all spiritual, and so your spirit needs to heal as
Mm-hmm.
well. And I love that you're calling it an ongoing process, because there are people like, people. I spoke to a few friends yesterday preparing for this,
Hmm.
and one of them just recently lost her father. Um, but we talked about how things take time, and one of my friends was saying that her grandmother passed some years ago, and someone was like, well, when are you gonna when are you gonna be, that was a while ago, like when are you gonna be over this? And I'm like, wow, that's like sometimes when I think about my aunt, my mom has 9 sisters, and her
Wow.
first sister that passed, it was very hard for all of us. And that
Hmm.
was about 11 years ago. And sometimes I'm just driving and I find myself just bawling. I'm like, how did this even pop into my head? But
Yeah.
it may never go away. It just gets a little easier to handle and you understand it better. And so you said going through your process, you had a lot of support from friends and family.
Hmm.
What type of support does Can I Grieve offer to people that do not have the support of friends and family?
So we actually just launched our 8-week grief recovery program. We launched on March 6th, or class started our first round ever. So I call it my pilot crew, right? We launching together. So it's for 8 weeks, and so really during those 8 weeks, we really take a deep dive. We try to figure out what grief struggles or just struggles in life that you're having that could be related to grief. We try to create an action plan from where you are to where you want to be. So it's a very unique difference between a grief coach and a counselor. So I am not at all a counselor, but what I am is a coach. And the difference between a coach and a counselor is a coach helps you get to where you want to be, and a counselor, they kind of revisit the past and different things like that. And so we provide an 8-week grief recovery program, which we do in a group setting, or we can do one-on-one. In the future, later this year, we will be doing support groups. Outside of that, we do different events. So in October, we partnered with a nonprofit breast cancer foundation called
Mm.
BRIM, and we really just had a doctor come on and educate people about early detection and when to get mammograms and different things like that. And then in February, I'm very passionate about obviously heart disease because, like I said, my mother passed. She had a heart attack in her sleep. Not sure if she had any underlying heart problems. But that's something that I'm passionate about. So we did a fundraiser. I partnered with another nonprofit, and we did a fundraiser to raise funds. And so big on educating people about diseases, especially that affect the Black community, right? Because at the end of the day, if we don't take care of our bodies and ourselves, then that does lead to death, and that does lead to grief because somebody is left to pick up the pieces from losing their loved one. And so we really, like I said, we're a platform where we educate people. So I do different webinars. I also have done interviews with different people, grief warriors, just having them, share their story. So in that, people are able to get educated too, outside of just me, being a spokesperson all the time. And so those are just a few different ways. We've also done some volunteer work, working with the youth to help them enhance their social and emotional skills. So really, just whatever support we can help out in, whether it's in a grief capacity or just like a mental health capacity. And if I'm not able to provide that support, I know somebody who can. So it's all about collaboration and what we do too.
I absolutely love that. And giving people a space to talk sometimes is like that might be just the help that they need. They just need to
Right?
talk to somebody, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then you talked about working with the youth.
Yeah.
And earlier you mentioned that you don't only grieve losing somebody, you can grieve all
Mm-hmm.
types of things. You could grieve losing a friendship or a job or something in life that you
Partnership.
thought you were going to have and it didn't turn out that way. And
Mm-hmm.
so you're going through a grief process. And I think that that is so important, especially right now, post pandemic. We've all been through so much. And for many people, life is just different. It's not the same. Maybe they
Yeah.
lost a home, maybe they lost their job. And that's something that they do need to work through. And everybody doesn't look at that like, sometimes people just be like just buck up. That's life, just buck up, right? And sometimes you need the help. You need help to process all of that. So I
Right.
love that you're doing that work. So for the youth, like what does that look like working with youth?
So I have spoke. I went to a school in DC, and I actually had the opportunity to speak to a group of middle schoolers about grief. And so, really, it really just depends on what the school is willing to allow, and the different organizations that we work with. It's really up to them. I kind of give the control to them, like, hey, these are the areas that we specialize in, grief support and just helping the kids understand their feelings and different things like that.
Mhm.
But ultimately, if the school doesn't feel like, they want me to talk about grief, maybe they want me to talk about heartbreak. Maybe they want me, like I said, just to help the kids understand their feelings and how to process different things, because kids go through things as well. It's not just adults. And the thing is, there was something I was going to say about this topic, but we'll have to come back to it when I think
Okay. No, so my niece, the school she goes to, I really like the way that they do offer a lot of support to be able to speak on how you're feeling.
of it. Right.
And I just noticed for her, she's 9, she'll be 10 this year, but she's way more effective in communicating what she needs versus where I
Sorry, I
was at
lost
that
you.
age. And so I think that that is just an amazing tool for kids to have.
And I think you might have froze on my end, so I kind of missed what you were saying about the program or something that they were doing at the school. I didn't get to hear it.
Yeah, I was saying that I feel that the way some of the schools are encouraging kids to be able to communicate what they're feeling, it's so helpful in helping them resolve problems and helping them solve conflicts and to be able to solve things with their friends. And it's at a level that when I was coming up, I didn't feel like we were taught that kind of thing at school. Like that was something that you need to learn at home, but I like that school also encourages that. So I think that the work that you're doing with youth is amazing, to help them build confidence and to help them communicate.
Yes,
Um,
and it just popped back up to me when you were saying like these things were taught in the home, and so I was going to say, it just came back to me. In my generation, and probably in your generation too, there was no social media, or social media wasn't a big thing, and so a lot of our youth are suffering from different things that they're seeing on social media, whether it's lifestyle, or even just finding out a loved one or a friend has transitioned. Most people find out online before they even
yeah,
talk to a family member or a friend that a loved one or a friend has, passed away. And so the youth, they're, like I said, they're grieving too. When I was growing up, it wasn't very common for young children to just pass away. But because we have social media and people have access to all these different things, there's a lot of crime, especially in the DMV area,
yeah,
carjackings and all these different things. So the youth, they're losing their friends, whether it's to jail, death, whatever. And so it's just different. And so that's why we've incorporated, grief for the youth. But, we can only go so far with certain ages and boundaries and different things like that.
yeah. I think it's wonderful. And so I see that on your Instagram
Hmm.
that you offer a lot of tips on Instagram and you encourage people to stay connected to their loved ones. So what are some of the tips? What are 3 tips that you could give somebody to dig deep when they're going through it?
I feel like that's an open question. So kind
Yes.
of elaborate a little more. Like, are you talking about like staying connected? Are you talking about like healing? Like,
So I woke up this morning
mhm,
and I'm just deeply feeling the loss of a loved one,
mhm.
and I don't know how to process that in this moment. What are some things that I could do to process what I'm feeling?
I would definitely say, one, to acknowledge how you're feeling. I always tell people don't suppress your feelings because, like I said in the beginning, grief isn't going anywhere. So even if you put it in your back pocket, like, I don't feel like dealing with this today, I don't want to be sad today, like, eventually it's going to come out, whether it's an irritation, like you being short with people, attitude, whatever. And so it's just good to acknowledge, like, hey, I'm not feeling, this today. So first, acknowledge, right, how you feel. Two, I would say don't suppress your feelings. So I always tell people, you don't always get those random moments of sadness, but when you do get them, acknowledge them, right? Like some people cry, more than others, and some people don't cry at all, right? But does that mean that the two aren't grieving? No, that just means everybody grieves differently. And so acknowledge it, don't suppress how you're feeling, like feel those emotions, because in order for you to heal it, you have to feel it, right? And then I would just say, take a couple deep breaths, right? um it's powerful when you really think about it, because a lot of times we react, right, before we really think. And so when you just take a moment to take a deep breath, like woosah, take a couple
Yes.
of deep breaths, right? And then I would say, after you take those deep breaths, write three things that you're grateful for. I don't
Mm.
do this every day. I'm bad at it, but I try to do it, as often as I can. Just writing three things that I'm grateful for. And that'll just kind of give you a moment to reflect, right? And I'm not necessarily saying it's going to make you feel better, but at least you'll remember in a moment where you're down and out that you do have three things to be grateful for. So,
Yeah, I love those tips, especially the acknowledgement, right? The good
yeah.
old G.I. Joe saying, knowing is half the battle. And so I think that's definitely important. Acknowledge what you're feeling and do
Yeah.
not suppress it. And you said that it could come out in other ways, and I agree. And not even just through your actions, but like in your body. You could feel
Yeah.
sick. You can end up feeling not well, and it really does take a toll on your body when you do
Yeah.
not express what you're feeling.
Right.
Um,
Because it's like energy, and our body is energy. Like we're energy people, energy.
right, exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so I do want to ask because I know that people that support someone that is grieving have a hard time. Like I said, it's hard to discuss grief. It's hard to console someone. You don't know what to say. You don't even know if they're going to be receptive to it. And
Yeah.
recently, I saw someone had posted on Facebook about when someone has lost somebody, don't ask them what. Don't tell them to reach out to me. Let me know what you need. Just
Yeah.
go and do. So, what are some things that people that are supporting someone that is grieving can do?
Oh my gosh, I just talked about this. So, Can I Grieve University? We do classes every Monday. So, yesterday we had class, and I talked about ways to support yourself and ways that you can support others that's grieving. And so, you definitely don't want to be judgmental. You don't want to be, um, what's the word that I'm looking for? It'll come back to me. But yeah, you don't want to be judgmental. You want to be patient with people. And so if someone is telling the same story over and over again, allow them that opportunity and that space to do so. Offer to do chores. So that could be laundry, that could be washing the dishes, that could be babysitting. A lot of people, when you're grieving, you got the kids, you don't really have time to do both, right? You got to be in
Mhm.
mommy mode, this mode. So somebody coming over and watching your kids so you can just have some space to do whatever you need to do, it's powerful. So what did I say? Chores. um, Give them the space, right? Be patient. Don't pass judgment. Don't try to be relatable. A lot of people, they may have experienced the same thing. Like, let's say you lost your mom and I lost my mom. We had the same experience or the same type of loss, but not the same experience, right? And so don't try to be relatable. I know how you feel. You don't know how I feel, because you lost your mom, I lost my mom. Again, same type of loss, different type of experience, different type
Mhm.
of feelings. So don't try to be relatable. Don't try to look for the right things to say. A lot of times people want to say something like they want to be supportive, and they end up coming off offensive, saying the wrong thing when really they meant well, but they end up saying the wrong thing. And so don't always just try to look for the right thing to say. If you don't know what to say that. Like, I don't know what to say. I don't know how you're feeling, but I just want to be here for you. How can I support you? You know, a lot of times, like I said, people want to say something, but silence is golden, right? Like they say in the movies. And so you just showing up, right? Just being there. Sitting in silence, if that's what it takes, but you just being there, that could mean the world to somebody. Trying to think of some more of how you can support somebody.
I think that that last thing you said is very powerful. Just show up.
Yeah,
Because, not knowing what to say or knowing how to be, sometimes people won't come because it's awkward, right? I
yeah.
don't know what to say, so I'm not going to go over there. I don't know. And you gave a lot of great tips, especially. I absolutely love it. Well, thank you so much for coming on and telling us about Can I Grieve? And again, I congratulate you on starting this and on your big vision. And I can't wait to see what you have next. And thank you all for watching. If you made it to the end, don't forget to like and subscribe to the Spotlight DMV, where we're coming to you with people from the community talking about their lives, their passions, their business, or whatever it is they want to talk about. This is our history, our legacy.